Welcome back to Ron's Radio Corner. So what do the three radios that are on the table in front of me have in common? Well, yesterday I decided to take advantage of some nice weather and have a little bit of a cookout. Which, as a side note, when you live in an apartment and you have to bring everything out for a cookout and then clean up and bring everything back in for a cookout, and you can't just leave things out in the yard, it's a lot more work than you think it would be. But during the cookout, even the preparation for the cookout, I wanted to play a little music. And I used each of these radios, but I used them with this. A C Crane FM transmitter 2. This was recommended to me by Jay Allen from Radio Jay Allen website that if you're into radios, I would absolutely suggest you check out. But I was interested in finding a way to listen to AM radio, which I still have some interest in trying to figure out how to transmit over AM in a strong enough way where I could do like a whole house situation. And he recommended this FM transmitter 2 instead, because I had you've seen it in one of the other videos, a GE Super Radio 3, and he suggested taking advantage of the really nice sound from that radio, and talked about how much he likes this particular FM transmitter and how well it works. So I picked one up, and I have a ball with it. I constantly will put together playlists on my laptop where I house pretty much all my music collection. And then, I'll pick a radio and I'll listen to some music for the day. One of the reasons I'm putting together this video is because, some of the other posts, people have asked me why do I think Bluetooth is important. As I've done a few different posts now, I think to myself, how do people listen to music? How do people use radio? I think radio is an interesting term. I think when I think of radio, I think of one of these devices that's in front of me. I think that today radio means, that radio station, and they're sort of breaking out of the confines of transmitting, a signal on either AM or FM. In fact, most AM stations also seem to transmit on FM. And it seems today almost every radio station is also available to stream live. And it's funny, I'm wondering, I have to back up the video. Have I said stream instead of broadcast? Just kind of shows you how much stream has become this this word that we use day to day. But really back to the point, radio stations today aren't relying on broadcasting an AM signal or an FM signal or even any signal. Now they're able to be streamed off your phone or your laptop, or you can't see it on the table unless I rearrange some stuff here, but there's an Echo Dot sitting on that table. One of the things I've wondered about is, in some ways, do you even need a radio today? I literally spend very little time listening to broadcast radio. I tend to get in the car and it automatically connects to my phone, and then I'm streaming music through a streaming subscription. There was a point in time where I would listen to my local channel off of one of these Amazon devices that I have kicking around the house. But I had the radios, and one of the reasons I kind of switched back to the radio is because there are times where when you're streaming one of those stations, there seems to be some dead air. I don't know if it's because of an issue with my internet signal where it breaks the connection, or it's an issue with just the, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who it usually is. You ask to stream the station, then you hear what service it is, and I can't think of who that is, but maybe it's their service that sort of causes a glitch for a handful of seconds, sometimes longer. That doesn't seem to happen on the radio. Since I'm usually in the morning putting on like a local news or NPR or something like that, I just figure I might as well use the radio. But one of the other reasons I wanted to kind of put this together is because each of these radios got pulled out and used because of different thoughts in my head at the time. Originally, I grabbed the C-Crane EP Pro, or the CC Radio EP Pro. I just hadn't used it in a while. I bought it because it's supposed to be a great sounding radio. It's supposed to be really selective. Not that I needed it to be really selective in this case, because I was going to be broadcasting something from the FM transmitter. But I pulled that out. I set it up, in my dining room as I started to prep things that I needed to prep to go out for the cookout. Yes, it was rather windy here. So when it came time to actually cooking outside, I decided I didn't want to take the EP Pro. It was windy enough, I was afraid the radio could tip over wherever I put it. I didn't want to risk that. So I grabbed the little red Prunus radio, which I've talked about in a few other videos. It has that brick shape, right? Really can't tip it. I also thought about grabbing the CC Radio Solar, but I figured I'd grab this one instead. And I brought this outside, and it gets plenty loud enough to sit at a table and have some background music playing while you're talking and hopefully eating good food. In the background is my Sanjin radio. It's the WR16. And I actually had that playing in the house at different points. I'd done this not too long ago with another cookout where I left the radio in the house playing, just so every time I kind of walked in and out of the house, I would continue to hear whatever music was playing outside. The nice thing about that radio is it does sound great. It's a really nice radio, and I honestly thought if I was going to film the video for this week, it might have been the focus on that radio. But you might be able to hear it in the background, but I've put in my air conditioners, and the unit that I have in the dining room it's rather loud. So even though I had this playing yesterday, every time I walked in the house, I could tell music was playing, but I really couldn't hear much more than that. I actually ended up turning the EP Pro back on because it was in the dining room where I was walking in and out of. So toward the end of the night, or toward the end of the cookout, you're cleaning up and people have left. The little Prunus got put away, and then so did the EP Pro. And then I shut down the FM transmitter. And then I took the Sanjin and I set it to Bluetooth, and I opened up the music streaming service on my phone, and I started to stream music. Why is that important? Really isn't, except I thought of, that comment, why is Bluetooth important? And that was more on emergency radio, and my thoughts on emergency radios really tend to be that emergency radio, the best emergency radio, is one that you're constantly using, and you know where it is, and you always have batteries in it. But I think Bluetooth is something that really almost any radio today should have. And I don't know if I've said that in another video. I might have said it in some comments. But I think almost any radio should have, because I think today lots of people aren't necessarily listening to the local radio station for music. And I do think that, when we think of the idea of radio, not the actual physical device in front of you, or even the idea of something being transmitted on FM or AM, but when we think of the idea of radio, we're really thinking about listening to music. Yeah, there's talk radio, and maybe listen to some sports, but I think in my mind, I think we're thinking of music. And at the end of the day, I shut down the FM transmitter. I closed up the laptop, but I still wanted to listen to some music. And I didn't want to just turn on a local station and see what they played. I want to listen to music I like. So guaranteed playlists. So I went to music streaming service. I selected a song, and what's interesting is you put in one song, and at least this streaming service will tend to use that as a jumping point, and it's sort of interesting to see where it goes. Usually, it stays within music parameters that I like. So, why is Bluetooth important? Well, in this situation, it was the idea that as I was shutting off everything else, I could still, set the phone up, play some music, Bluetooth off of this, come into the living room for a little bit, sit down, and sort of enjoy, just the unwinding of hopefully a successful cookout. But so I wanted to kind of share that because there's a few things here that I think are important for me for radio. Right, one is I like radios, so I got to use a bunch of the radios I have. Two, I think if you're listening to music on a radio today, because you have these streaming services, no one has to go and listen to, put on the radio station, and maybe if you're lucky, they play a handful of songs you like, but you listen to a bunch of songs you don't care about. Although sometimes that's fine, right? You just need some background music, and you're really happy to put on something. But I think most people today are listening to music through streaming services. I read something the other day where it was one report said more than 50%, another report said as much as 75% listen to music through streaming service. So I really think today, if you're somebody who's making radios, you really got to sort of look at that market and say, well, we really got to focus on really good sound quality, and we've got to focus on having the ability to connect to people's phones and other devices via Bluetooth. So if they're not using this as a radio, it's still something they can use as a Bluetooth speaker. And it might be something they use more as a Bluetooth speaker, but there's a radio there if you want to listen to radio, if you need to listen to radio. So I think, I really do think Bluetooth is, for radios or radio manufacturers to keep the product viable, I think Bluetooth is really, if not necessary, certainly like a really key thing to consider putting in a radio. Not every radio should have Bluetooth. I mean, some of them don't have decent enough sound quality to make it worthwhile connecting to that, so you can listen to the music over this radio versus just listen to your phone. Although I suppose, the one thing is if if the music is playing from your phone but it's Bluetoothing to a radio, you could use your phone for other things. The FM transmitter, which I don't know if I can kind of grab this, put it back on the table without pausing again. It's like, ooh, the magic of film editing, except I'm not using a tripod or anything. So, I love this device. This is so much fun to have. You could set this up with, an MP3 player. I tend to use it on my laptop a lot. You could set it up with a tablet, and it runs off of batteries. It has an AC adapter, but this is such a fun little device that really deserves its own video. But if you're someone like me who really enjoys, having radios, and you have a music collection you want to listen to, maybe stuff that you never ever hear on the radio, this is a great way of basically taking any FM radio you have and sort of giving it the equivalent of Bluetooth connectivity. And then what's really nice is, a situation like I used it yesterday, where I had it transmitting, and then I had radios in different spots that, that were tuned in. So, I was outside, I was listening to it, I was in the dining room, I was listening to it. If I walked in here, I was listening to it. Um, I suppose there are some Bluetooth setups that could do something like that, but this is a lot of fun. And then on top of that, I could see taking this little transmitter camping. You go someplace at a campsite where your your radio reception might not be so great, and you could easily have people in different tents all have a little radio going if they wanted to, um, because one person could have this hooked up to like an MP3 player, and off you would go with like hours of music. Um, it runs on a couple of double A's, and those double A's last days and days and days. So, not really a focus here on any one particular radio. More of just an idea as I was kind of going through yesterday. I was thinking to myself how I was using these radios, particularly at the end of the day when I decided I still wanted to listen to some music, but I didn't want to have the laptop going and the transmitter going. Um, so I then switched this over to Bluetooth, and I'm like, yeah, this hits on so many things I've been thinking about in some of these other videos. Why are these things important? Well, I think if you have them, it's how do you find a way to use them and enjoy them. Um, you know, if you just need a radio to play in the background, then great, you're doing it. If you want an emergency radio in the closet, fine. But if you have some radios and you want to use them to the fullest, how do you do that? And for me, it's that combination of being able to use Bluetooth on the ones that have Bluetooth, use the FM transmitter to listen to music on, my music on any radio I have, and it's the ability. And didn't really talk about it in this video, but I've talked about it others. A lot of times, I'm taking a portable radio with me in the house, and I'm taking it with me room for room as I'm kind of getting ready in the morning, so I don't have to kind of have one radio blasting. I usually listen to local news or something like that. So, just some random thoughts. Thanks for listening to this all the way through. If you did, if you have any thoughts about how you like to use radio, share it in the comments below. And until the next time, thanks.